Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. I want to thank Ali at the Medina Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship for this opportunity to present to you today my webinar, The Fast Eat the Slow, using competitive intelligence to transform your small business into a market leader. My name is Kel Sloan of kelsloan.com. Over 90% of large companies, including Fortune 500s, use some form of competitive intelligence to dominate their markets. Their decision makers and the department heads, the CEOs, use it to answer questions that 20 or 30 years ago would have been handled as hunches or business instinct or some form of personal experience. These questions, which range from both strategic and tactical, include things such as, who are our competitors right now? Who are our potential competitors? Who's leaving this market in the near future and why? What are the track records of the key people at our competitors? What are their personalities? What difference do these people make in terms of how our competition will act in the future? Other questions such as, what new markets or geographic areas will or will not be tapped by our competitors in the near future? What current markets or geographic areas might they abandon? For most large companies, answers to these type of questions help them dominate their market in two direct ways: controlling price, controlling inventory. Think of it this way. As a small business owner, you buy your products from the same suppliers or distributors as your competitors, and sometimes your competitors are your suppliers. If you are starting a chocolate company, you buy your cocoa from Barry Callebaut and Valrhona, both of whom have ownership in Van Houten and Hershey, and are owned in part or fully by ADM, who also has a substantial interest in the sweetener industry. Best pricing is given to their own interests, their companies, their divisions. Second-tier pricing goes to resellers and distributors and other bulk customers. And you, as a small business owner, are at the very end of the line and you pay what they charge. Same goes for inventory. Because these large companies can afford to buy futures or destroy crops and manipulate the market as they see fit, they can control both the inventory, the supply, and prices. Shortage of cocoa because of civil unrest in one area such as Sierra Leone or the Ivory Coast, guess what happens? So, what's competitive intelligence? In a nutshell, competitive intelligence is the use of public sources to gather and analyze data that is transformed into information. And then this information into actionable intelligence. Generally, it's about competitors and competition. As a competitive intelligence professional, we use two main approaches, one being desk research, analyzing openly available information from sources such as SEC filings, company websites, LexisNexis, press announcements, corporate reports, Facebook updates, blog postings, tweets, reputation monitoring, user groups, and the list goes on and on. And primary research. We use things such as customer surveys, direct responses, product comparisons, and interviews with former employees. Intelligence is the information that has been filtered, distilled, and analyzed. Intelligence, not information, is what you need to make decisions. Sometimes we even call it knowledge. By using competitive intelligence, a small business owner can anticipate changes in the market. It's rare to be surprised by events that can affect your business. If we look back just even a few years ago, we can see how companies such as Ford in the US continue to build big gas-guzzling trucks even while gas prices continue to rise, close to $4 a gallon. While companies like Toyota started building small cars and hybrids. And within a relatively short period of time, a no-name manufacturer became either number one, number two, or number three on top of the top US car makers. A small business owner can use competitive intelligence to anticipate actions of other competitors. to discover new or potential competitors, to learn from the success and failures of others, such as the Ford example, learn about new technologies, products, and processes that affect your business. I mean, let's face it, who could have ever foreseen 5 years ago that we'd be using Twitter, Facebook, GoToWebinar, LinkedIn profiling to drive our businesses? As a small business owner, we use competitive intelligence to learn about new political or legislative or regulatory changes that can affect businesses before they're enacted. We use it to find new business opportunities and even turn it upon ourselves to evaluate our own operations and our own business practices. Let's face it, as a small business owner, the pace of business is increasing rapidly. Think about how quickly you're expected to respond to questions from employees, suppliers, customers. Do you remember just a few years ago using the post office to mail something out like an invoice? Chances are, as a small business owner, that you are making more decisions, making them faster than ever, and frankly, you need good intelligence to make the right decisions. Because the speed of everything is increasing and you have a business to run, it's very easy to get burned out in information overload. Competitive intelligence is not just about collecting the information or listening to rumors, and I want to stress this, it's about analyzing it. Frankly, we both know that companies no longer think in terms of political or local boundaries. Even as a small business owner, you can have increased competition from global competitors, or your existing competitors are becoming more aggressive, or have developed new synergies with partners. So competitive intelligence is about developing a system to filter out the noise and focus on the knowledge which you need to use to make a decision. For example, let's say you own a bakery distribution company and you have 15 other direct competitors and a host of indirect competitors. Your largest competitor, Company X, announces that it is carrying a probiotic line. You don't have one. So let me ask you, should you run out and start carrying the same probiotic line or research and do a new one? You look at things such as TrendWatch and you see that probiotics are going to be good. They're a growth market for 2011. But now it's 2012, going into 2013. And the regulatory environment in both the EU, the United States, and Canada has significantly changed. So, let's say you investigate this probiotic line your competitor is carrying a little further. And as you go to the manufacturer's website, you see that your competitor's big customers are already buying those probiotics directly from the manufacturer. And because it's a big ticket item, it runs anywhere between $600 to $1,000 a kilogram. You know, your biggest competitor, Company X, his smallest customers aren't going to buy it. But if you knew that your competitor was also owned by a holding company, they haven't really announced it or said much about it, but they're still held by a holding company. And that holding company has owned it for over 5 years. You might put everything together and figure out that the reason why your competitor is carrying the probiotic line is not to make sales, but rather to boost the value of the company before it goes up for sale again. Now, I want to point out something very, very important about competitive intelligence. Competitive intelligence is not spying or industrial espionage. There are very high legal and ethical standards that competitive intelligence professionals follow. In fact, most companies already have between 50 to 80% of the information they need to make a critical decision in-house already. It's just that in most companies, very little, if any of it, is ever systematically collected, organized, and analyzed. Think of it this way. You're selling tires to a garage that installs them on school buses, and only school buses. Your account receivable tells the salesperson that the garage is a little behind on its invoices, or has been short paying or not endorsing checks. Your salesperson calls them, gets some reassurances that things will be straightened out quickly, And then your salesperson lets matters go until the issue comes up again in another month or two. 3 months later, the garage goes under and owes you $100,000. Of course, now it's little too late to collect. But somebody in your company remembered reading that the school board was going to be adding a few vans. And the CI, having this information organized, could have led you to the fact that not only was the company buying a few new vans, but the school board had issued a new tender for services. And that tender was awarded to another company. Knowing this information, you would have cut off credit to the garage and not been out $100,000. So, we're gathering all this information. And how do we do that? How does a small business keep track and follow all the webs that lead to both risks and awesome opportunities? Well, we start at the beginning by understanding that competitive intelligence is driven by business needs, and that in turn is usually driven by underperforming assets. The truth of the matter is that very few competitive intelligence programs are started because management is acting proactively. Generally, it's only reactive. And I want to just step back here and just mention that competitive intelligence falls into 3 basic categories: strategic decisions and actions, early warning topics, and the knowledge of and the learning from key players. And in most industries, the competitive landscape changes over time, and the intelligence that you gather needs to be constantly updated to meet the new and different intelligence needs, because every company will use the intelligence differently at different points in time. But the one thing that remains constant is that you are looking to understand the evolving dynamics of your industry and its future profit potential. Could you imagine trying to go into business as a blacksmith making just horseshoes in this day and age? Would never fly. Secondly, your sales team needs to close deals, and the competitive intelligence gives them an early warning sign of new competitors, as well as profiles of your existing set of competitors. And yes, I understand there is an additional expense to having a dedicated competitive intelligence person or a third-party contractor like myself to get up and running. But a responsive competitive intelligence system can pay off in dividends. Let's put it in perspective. If you had an opportunity to bid on a $20 million contract, and you knew every step that your competitors were going to take, the strategies they were going to take, the tactics that they were going to employ, would it be not worth $50, $100, $200,000, $1 million to be able to nail down everything you need to get that $20 million contract? For most companies, that's maybe a little out there for them, but really at the bare minimum, your competitive intelligence program in-house needs to start by profiling your competitors. You need to look at things such as their products and their services, their strengths and their weaknesses, their market focus, their sales approaches, their tactics. Do they always drop prices when faced with a competitive bid? Really what you're trying to do is build a competitor library. And then we attack. No. Not so easy, I'm afraid. Well, it's very easy to collect information. Where most large companies often fail in their competitive intelligence program is that they don't produce truly actionable analysis. They aren't forward-looking, and they aren't producing decision-related knowledge. Listen, lots of companies run all sorts of paper analysis, and some of them are extremely good at it. They run things such as simulations and word games, environmental scanning, which we used to call trend watching, forward-looking analysis, competitive hypothesis analysis, defensive and aggressive repetition analysis, early warning and risk management, value chain analysis, opportunity entry cost, and so on and so on. The reason they do all these forms of analysis comes back just to one basic principle. the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, placement, and platitudes. I mean promotion. And I'm just picking on the marketing people because a lot of marketing companies, a lot of marketing people, once they got the product in place and the price and everything, they love to pat themselves on the back. But I want to point out one very obvious missing element among the 4 P's. Where's the customer? Where's the customer in all this? The 4 P's of marketing ignores the most obvious tenet of business. The purpose of a business is to create a customer. And that doesn't happen by placing cheaply made, sweet-baked goods on the shelf of a grocery store in fancy packaging, waiting for a customer to buy them before the expiry date hits. And I don't care how much and how many radio and TV ads you run, it just doesn't work at it. Look, just this past week, Hostess Bakeries, bakers of Twinkies, just folded their doors again. So, a small business should be in the business of creating customers. How do we do that? Well, we start with Pareto's rule. 80% of your revenues come from 20% of your customers. So ask yourself, what do you really know about these high-value customers that you have? Just like you did with your competitors, you need to start profiling your customers. And you can start at the most obvious start by looking at their ordering history and their accounts receivables and creating a customer library. You profile the customer just like you do with the competitors, and the competitors that are working with the customers for things such, what are the projects the competitors are looking on? Who are they partnering with to deliver products and services? When is each project set to end? What is the status relationship that they have with customers and competitors? You are looking to generate new business with your existing customers. Expand your pipeline by looking at the synergies between the projects being currently worked on and your offerings to enhance these products. Secondly, you want to profile the remainder of your existing customers to see what the potential is for future growth. Thirdly, while you're looking to find out which customers are more trouble than they are worth, the ones that have so many needs and demands that need to be filled that take up far more resources than their business is worth, you need to dump the dead ends. They are a waste of resources, time, and money that can be spent building new and profitable customers. So, this is not to say to put all your eggs in one basket. We all know how easy it is for a major customer to drop us for a competitor. For example, several years ago, a small company I worked with landed a major contract with Carrefour. The Carrefour business was so profitable that they focused exclusively on building that business and dumped all their other customers. And unfortunately, like happens so often, the owners got greedy and started substituting cheaper ingredients without prior approval by Carrefour. And then the most onerous sin is they failed to listen to a number of complaints by Carrefour. And literally, one Tuesday, Carrefour just pulled the business without notice. None of us want to be in that situation. But we do need to know everything we can about our high-value business and direct the appropriate resources to meet their needs. The more you know about your customer, the better able you are to create a customer. The overriding question, the one you want to be asking yourself is, do I know my customer's business better than he knows it? You want to be able to anticipate your customer's needs. You also want to go one step further and know who their customers are and understand those markets. I know there seems to be an awful lot of information to collect and analyze, but by understanding your competitors, by understanding your customers, and by understanding their customers and end users, you start to develop insight. Excuse me.
insight, the capacity to discern the true nature of a situation, penetration, the act, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat here, or outcome of grasping the inward or hidden nature of things, or of perceiving in an intuitive manner. And of course, insight is important because the vast majority of competitors don't have it. And the large companies that do are often too slow to react to take advantage of a situation. For those of you that know the Canadian coffee donut chain Tim Hortons, it takes 2 years for a new product to be approved. In many large software companies, it takes 18 months to 3 years to develop and release a new product. In fact, most large companies cannot anticipate or react to the opportunities that you as a small business owner can see. So, I thought I'd be clever and show you how to find your own blind spot. You got to get your face real close to your computer screen and stare at the cross and circle with your left eye. Of course, this has nothing to do with finding your competitors' blind spots, but you already have all the data accumulated in your library. Your competitor profiles, your customer profiles, you know about your market, about your industry, and I'm positive you are already constantly updating data about world economic conditions. But the most important part of understanding why a competitor has a blind spot is to ask yourself one very important question. Why? Why are they not in this space? Do they lack the capability? Are they slow to respond? Do they not see the profit potential? And from these types of questions, we start to develop our opportunity analysis, highlighting the risks and opportunities. And of course, it's important to note that whoever is doing the analysis, whether it be yourself, an employee, or a third party like myself, that they have to think like a decision maker and clearly identify opportunities for corporate action. Stand up and back their decisions. We all know that business owners can be a mite opinionated at times, but the job of a competitive intelligence professional here is to look at the situation objectively and oppose the final decision maker if that is the best option for the company. Then what? What do we do with all this information and the opportunities you have identified? We make sandwiches. Yes, that's my answer. We make sandwiches. We take all the data, the competitor profiles, the customer profiles, all the raw ingredients, analyze it, and make an actionable plan. It's important we don't just take orders. We need to be proactive. Your competitive intelligent person should be spending 25 to 50% of his time providing deal support. This is where the true value comes in. And this is what is going to separate you and your company from competition. Your CI must be actively involved in the business development process, contributing in key ways, such as scenario planning. We also call it the what if. We're role modeling how the industry is going to change, how customers are going to react, how competitors are going to react. This person is going to take all the information they've gathered and developed a series of scenarios. They're going to reverse engineer the thought process behind previous decisions and look for patterns that your competitors, their leaders, and their customers have made in the past. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the adage, past behavior indicates future actions, or some version thereof. Documenting these scenarios gives you the opportunity to pre-plan your responses. Understand how your competitors will react. Think of it like a game of chess, except you are able to see 4 moves ahead of your competition and your customers. Secondly, your competitive intelligence person needs to work closely with a member or two of any key deal team. Really, anyone who is familiar with customer requirements, whether it be just a sales team or support such as customer service, shipping, doesn't matter. You are looking for them as a group to craft responses that a particular competitor or customer is likely to make if a specific set of events should occur. You're role playing, but with a thorough understanding and determination of your competitors' capabilities and responses. Let me give you an example. In most companies, a salesperson is hired, given a very brief overview of your products, and sent out, usually to a number of assigned accounts, or one account in the case of a key account person. They are set a quota and told to fill the pipeline by building a relationship with the customer. Most fail. Why? Why is that? Well, in part, it's because they only focus on two P's, product and price. Up to this point, the process that you have been undergoing has been designed to do one thing: focus your selling. You have found the right customers you can use, or who can use your product. You have identified how your competitors are going to react, what their sales tactics and strategies are. You have crafted and practiced responses to objections, and you understand what your customers' needs and why. You are focused, and from that you build relationships because the customer knows, he knows you are not there to waste their time, but there to help them grow their business. And that's the key point. You use competitive intelligence to help your customers grow their business. Why? Because it builds loyalty. And when your customer trusts you, values you, and is loyal to you, they don't nickel and dime you on price. So how else do you build customer loyalty and become a market leader? You follow Kell's rule. The purpose of a business is to create a customer for your customer. You want to learn your customer's market better than they do and find them customers who will use your products. If you're an ingredient distributor and sell your customers sugar, bring them a new customer that can use sugar. Be creative. It doesn't have to be another bakery or a candy factory. Be creative. You already have the information you need in-house in those nice little libraries you built. Have your sales team find your customer a high-value customer. Why? Simply because it addresses the power imbalance that exists between customers and suppliers. Your customer knows that you are looking to help them grow. They know you brought them value. You have a customer for them. And they know you have a relationship with that customer. And they know you can take that entity away. Now, there's no talk about substitutions or pricing decreases. The talk is focused on working together, delivering value to each other, and building trust. By bringing your customer, a high-value customer, by using competitive intelligence to do this, you can focus on becoming a market leader because everyone wants to work with you. And now, as you are becoming a market leader and dominating the market, you have much more control over the prices and inventory your supplier sells you. I can see I'm out of time, so I'll just very briefly talk about cloaking activities. And if there's enough interest in this topic, I'm sure Ali can talk me into doing a webinar on this topic alone. So, very briefly, cloaking means that we are looking to minimize or avoid detection from nosy or inquisitive CI people like myself. we're not cutting yourself off. You're not cutting yourself off totally from the world or your customers and your suppliers. No, what you're doing is understanding that you cannot protect all of your potentially valuable information, and that's okay. What you are looking to do is build a competitive advantage by slowing down competitive intelligence activities. And no, it's not the same as corporate and industrial security, where you password protect that or you lock those assets up or put cameras into place. What you want to do is protect competitively sensitive information by understanding the channels that competitors and yourself use to collect raw data on both your firm and their firm, and control what goes into these channels. When you started to build your library, when your competitive intelligence person started to build your library on customers, on competitors, on the market, they use certain tools, they use certain ways to gather this information. And all you want to do is understand how they did it and protect that information from yourself. So you need to determine what areas of your activities are of the greatest competitive interest to a competitor and focus your efforts on protecting those areas. Understand what techniques a competitor may use to analyze that data so that you can deprive that competitor of the kind of data it needs to act. And like you see, I'm running really low on time today, and we'll be more than happy to address this in a subsequent webinar. So I want to thank you for your time and your interest. It was my pleasure to talk with you today.